Hi guys, Richard from Adventure Offroad Training here. I'm here at the Adelaide RV stand and we're going to be talking about tyre pressures for when you're towing on a soft surface. So typically sand. First thing to understand is your four-wheel drive. Where do we need to get that tyre pressure to? Well, it's actually not about a pressure. It's about the deformation of the tyre. Now, the thing that's going to control that is both the weight pushing down over the axle and the construction of the tyre itself. Both of those things are going to be a variable, so depending on how the vehicle's loaded up or the stiffness of the tyre you've chosen to put on your vehicle will depend on how much air I have to then take out to get my footprint. But the footprint is the critical thing. So if we look at the width of that tyre and think of double that width on the tyre in length on the ground, we're going to get to somewhere about there and there. That is what we want to achieve. Now, what we're going to do is use this easy deflator. We're going to screw that on, and the first thing we're going to do before we air down the tyres is check the pressure. So by checking the pressure, we make sure that we haven't got a nail or a screw that's going to cause us problem later down the track, and the tyre's already started to deflate. So by pushing this in, I can simply unscrew that. I can check the tyre pressures, and they look as though they're going to be somewhere around about right for the thing. So that's running about 35 psi. It's about average for something like this 200 series. I'm now going to let air out. What I'm looking for is the deformation in the tyre and to get the length of the tyre on the footprint wise on the ground. So I'm going to check it here. That's now to 20 psi. I've now got a footprint from there to there. We could go a little bit more than that. So we're about where we need to be now. Now I've checked the pressure on this. I've dropped this front tyre down to 12 psi. What we do here is we get our footprint on one side of the axle with the vehicle sitting on level ground. We then transfer that pressure across to the other side. Now when we go to the next axle, we've got to consider whether there's more or less weight in that axle. But what we're trying to do is actually match the footprint. So it's fairly easy. You can take a measurement from the ground to the edge of the rim, or you can actually measure it, the footprint in length. But what we were trying to do is double that sort of tread width or length on the ground. And now if we go to the back one, we will do the same. Now with this vehicle, it's hitched up to the caravan. That means that there's got a tow ball weight on there from the drawbar of the vehicle, which means that this may have more pressure pushing down on this axle. So this might mean that we're at a higher pressure for the same deformation of the tyre. So I'm happy with that. That is 2 psi higher at the back now than it is at the front. Conversely, if this didn't have the caravan on the back, we may end up with being 2 psi lower at the rear for the same deformation because we haven't got the weight pushing down on the axle. All right, so there's our vehicle setup. We will have transferred that across to the other side. Now, once we've done that, we need to address the actual caravan itself. There's no point in getting good flotation and traction on your vehicle if you don't get rid of the resistance being pulled behind you. And that's one of the things people fail on. So the caravan tyres need to look the same as the vehicle that's pulling them. Otherwise, we're pulling the tyres through the ground, and this is creating more resistance for this vehicle to overcome. So let's go and have a look at the caravan itself. Okay, so now we're at the caravan being a single axle. What you've got to consider is this may be 1 to 2.5 tons, depending, and that's got a single axle. So effectively, this axle is taking more load than the axles on the four-wheel drive itself. So you could expect that these will be at a higher pressure, but again, what we want is that deformation. They may even be running the same rims and tyres as the vehicle, as quite often people put the same things on. So let's do that. Let's put that on. So these tyres are at 44 psi. So that's different to obviously the Land Cruiser that's at 35. So we've all got a bit of a footprint there. So let's take them down. Okay. So we're now down to 28 psi. So considerably heavier over the axle. But again, what we're after is this length of footprint on the ground. Now, the sidewall may bulge out, it may come into contact with the ground, but it is actually the tread that's actually taking the weight of the vehicle. So if we get this footprint with a bit of flotation, then we're on top of the surface, we're not trying to pull the van through the surface. And again, if you're on soft sand, this is what you're going to have to look at. So that's basically it. Make sure you've got the appropriate gear, which is a deflator such as this. This is going to tell you the pressure prior to airing down, making sure that you can, you've got a good tyre and it hasn't got a nail or a screw in. And then we can adjust by 1 or 2 psi each time we do this until we get it right. But as I say, it's not about the pressure, it is about the deformation. As you can see, for the same sort of deformation, you've got 12 and 14 in the cruiser, you've got 28 psi over this axle. So it's the weight that's made the difference. All right, I'm Richard from Adventure Off-Road Training with Adelaide RV. So have a good day and hope this helps when you're driving on soft ground.